Welcome to Blooming Wand, your home for grounded and intuitive spiritual guidance. I'm Emily O'Neill, evidential psychic medium, intuitive healer, and coach, and I'm here to guide you on a journey of self-reflection using the wisdom of the tarot. As the moon waxes and wanes, so do our own inner tides, and as a way to honor moon cycles and life cycles on each full and new moon, I pull 3 cards which inspire an intention and affirmation to illuminate your path. Think of them as themes to guide you as you move through coming days. So grab your journals, light a candle, and settle into the present moment. Let's delve into the enchanting archetypes of the tarot, uncovering the magic and messages they hold for all of us. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's dive in. On December 30th, we've got a new moon, and this new moon's tarot curated insights are all around navigating threshold moments. So I used the Wild Unknown Tarot deck this moon cycle, and we pulled Judgment. We pulled Strength, the Strength archetype, and we pulled the Death card. And these are all major arcana cards. That's kind of a big deal. And to me, it means that this moon cycle is going to be extremely powerful. It says to me that there's a lot going on in some of our lives and that we're experiencing things probably collectively and personally. So don't forget to get a good look at the cards if you haven't already. You can go to bloomingwand.com to do so. Just click explore and go to the blog. There'll be pictures of the cards, a transcript of this podcast there. And if you're not receiving my newsletter, I do invite you to visit my website, bloomingwand.com, and go ahead and sign up for that newsletter because that's where I send out all the good stuff. Now, moving on to diving more deeply into these tarot archetypes. The appearance of these specific archetypes in the days following the winter solstice, so the solstice was on the 21st of December, it's the longest night, right? It's when the darkness has built to its climax. So seeing these 3 major arcana times right after the solstice holds a particular significance because they represent threshold moments. Collectively, we're moving from darkness to light. And this process isn't going to happen instantaneously, but incrementally. Slowly but surely, the days are going to get brighter, and by February 1st, we'll be at the halfway point between winter and spring, and the light will be strong enough to call forward the crocuses and the daffodils. That's right, it's not that far away. By February 1st, you're going to see the first signs of spring. I personally love winter and I love the dark. It's when I come alive, but I know other people don't feel that way. So pay attention to how the seasonal shifts make you feel. And, just know that everybody's different. A lot of people feel like so awesome in summer. Not the case for me. Like I said, I like the darkness of winter. Now, we're talking about collectively, the great wheel of the year has turned. We've passed through this winter solstice. We're kind of still in the little bit of the dark times, but the days are getting lighter. So collectively, we're experiencing seasonal change. But you know what I always say, when the seasons shift, so do you. It's true. We move with the seasons. We might not be following along with exactly what happens in nature. Our systems might be a little bit different than that. But when there's a shift in the wheel, there's usually a shift in us. So on a personal level, you might be feeling that you're at a threshold. Maybe you've achieved some of the goals you've set for yourself, and you might need to be thinking about where you'd like to go next. I can relate to that. Maybe you've recognized some behaviors, relationships, or patterns in your life don't seem to fit anymore, but you're not sure how to address this knowing. Threshold moments, they can be really mysterious, leaving us feeling different, but we're not sure what that means yet. That's happened to me so many times. It's like I feel different, something's different, I don't know what it is, and then lots of stuff starts happening in my life. So I wonder if that's ever happened to you. So this new moon intention is this: to explore threshold moments with gentle strength because they hold so much magic. Here's your affirmation: like the lion with the rose, I am both fierce and gentle, and I trust my wisdom. So I was feeling like each of these archetypes kind of moved us into this kind of story of this moon cycle, which begins with the call to awakening, then embodying balance, power, and then a sacred release. And it feels really important to kind of go through these archetypes and kind of where maybe they fit in this threshold, right? So beginning with the Judgment card, we've got the call to awakening. And on this card, I see a white bird, wings stretched, so they're spread wide. They are all in white, and there are dark birds underneath them. There's darkness beneath them, and it's like they're illuminating some dark space. And in this illumination, it awakens these other birds, and they're beginning to rise to the light. The Judgment card's white bird rising above darkness with wings extended mirrors our current seasonal journey. We've just passed the longest night, and we're beginning our gradual return to the light. This celestial messenger, so I feel like the white bird is a celestial messenger, leads others skyward from shadow. So they've illuminated this dark space, and it's like awakened these things that have been laying in shadow. And the timing is pretty profound. So, like the solstice itself, this card heralds transformation and the promise of illumination. While our journey may start in solitude, like the first glimmer of dawn after the longest night, our personal evolution will inevitably inspire others to rise. I know that I've seen other people go through things in their life, and that it has inspired me, their strength, their wisdom, their ability to answer the call of their heart, even when it's hard. We need to see other people going through life, all the good stuff and the stuff that's more difficult, because we relate to each other. That's how we understand each other, right? Now, the Strength card is all about embodying balanced power. So the Strength card comes after the Judgment card, and it presents a majestic lion adorned with an infinity symbol, gently cradling a rose in its mouth. This sequence suggests that after hearing the call to transform, we must find equilibrium between power and tenderness. The infinity symbol reminds us that we have the capacity for balanced action, and that capacity is limitless. And we're ever renewing our inner wisdom within as we navigate change. So if we don't come to change, if we don't have transitions and threshold moments, we don't learn and grow. And like the gradually lengthening days ahead, our inner strength grows incrementally, but persistently. And I really like that idea that I don't know how you feel, but I don't feel strong all the time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I know that the wellspring of inner strength is always there. And that as I kind of get older and grow in my personal experience and wisdom, I do feel my inner power growing. I do feel that inner lion, that inner strength getting stronger and wiser. And yes, even more tender and more gentle. I don't feel like I have to push through things as hard as I used to. When I was in my 20s, it was very, I don't want to say ambitious, but it was like, get it done now. If I was going through a change, how fast can I get through it? And I wanted to control a lot of things. But now I know, no, you can't make things go faster. You have to do things when you're ready. Sometimes you have to wait till you're ready, and you can't force everything. So I'm kind of leaning into that wisdom, and I associate that also with this strength archetype, and particularly the lion. Now we move on to the death archetype. So the death card, with its stark imagery of bones and remaining feathers, so you have a decomposing bird here, there's bones and a few feathers, and the bird is white against a dark black background. This completes our narrative. Having heard the call and found our inner strength, we can now identify and release what no longer serves us. And like a tree inherently knowing when to shed its leaves, our inner wisdom recognizes the parts that are ready to fall away. Now, some examples of that could be protective patterns that we've outgrown, beliefs that just don't ring true to us anymore, roles that conflict rather than uplift. So you're finding yourself in certain roles or situations that are making you feel really conflicted and not so good. Commitments that don't align with your evolving truth. So when we change or when we're in thresholds, sometimes things that we've committed to or paths that we're on don't feel right anymore, and we have to abandon them and let them go. Now, ways that you can honor this milestone. So these transitions in our life, these threshold moments, they often occur quietly, not always, but sometimes they do. And they don't always get external recognition, either from ourselves, well, that would be internal recognition, but other people might not see it in us. Or it's not like when you go through big life events, somebody's always like, yay, you, sometimes nobody notices. So they're quiet. Sometimes we don't see or recognize them. Sometimes those around us don't see or recognize them. So it's important to create space to acknowledge their significance because they're so magic, right? And we're going to dive into that in a little bit. So things that you could think about if you realize, yep, I'm in a threshold moment, would be to craft a personal ritual to mark the transition. I have someone that I know who's moving from one state to another, and I was like, hey, do a little ritual for the house that's been taking care of you and housed you, and so that you can let it go because you're going to be moving into a new house. You can document your journey through journaling or art. I'm never going to let an opportunity go by to not mention journaling, or even ripping things out of newspapers or magazines and putting them onto a piece of paper just for fun. Who cares what it looks like, as a way to channel your feelings and be present for them. You can set aside some time for just deep reflection. I did that the other day. I just sat on the couch and got cozy and looked out the window and watched the birds and thought about life. You can share your experience with trusted friends. That's always good. I like to talk about things that I'm going through with my partner and with my sisters and my friends. You can create tangible reminders that this is a threshold crossing. So one of the things that I like to do for that, I don't know why I do this, but if I know that I'm kind of in a threshold moment, I find myself wanting to light more candles, which I like, because if candles feel special to me, and it's like candles, journaling, those kinds of things. But I also like to put things on my altar space, like portals or paths, or things like that that represent kind of a journey and a transition, so that I remember that I'm working through a threshold moment and I'm honoring it. So as you stand at this midwinter crossroads, remember that transformation, like the return of light after the solstice, unfolds gradually. And begin by answering the call that resonates within you. Draw upon your inner strength to navigate the changes ahead, and trust that what falls away creates space for new growth. And listen to your body's wisdom. Tension often reveals we're holding on to what's ready to be released. This is something that makes me giggle a little bit, because I'll always get neck or shoulder pain right when I'm kind of entering into a new phase or a threshold moment, and I forget that, and then I'm like, my neck's hurting. And then a couple days later, I'm like, oh, this always happens when my life is kind of changing and when I'm in a threshold moment. So I think it really does help to pay attention to how your body is feeling. And sometimes being tired can indicate you're in a big change, or if you're feeling really emotional and a lot of different emotions at once. So I know it's not always fun to hold space for uncomfortable body sensations or emotions, but the reality is that they do need our attention. And remember that your journey of transformation is worthy of recognition and care. Take time to honor this threshold moment, knowing that each conscious step forward, like the lengthening of the days, contributes to your evolving story. So every day gets a little brighter, right? So that analogy of with every day, you're getting closer and closer to your light, your transformation. Now, I wanted to talk about, I've always thought about kids' stories and myth and folklore where they talk about thresholds, or what thresholds can look like and why they're so special. And they're often talked about in really magical ways. So I wanted to talk about how thresholds are magical, ways to identify when you're in a threshold moment, and how to honor these times. So, threshold moments in folklore and mythology hold tremendous power because they represent liminal spaces and the in between where ordinary rules dissolve and magic becomes possible. And so, here are some examples. In Celtic mythology, and this is something I've heard about many times, they are places that are called thin places, and there are thin times like dawn, dusk, and the changing of the seasons, and they were considered magical thresholds. So the solstice is a magical threshold, right? Where the veil becomes thin, or where we say that the space between this physical world and the spirit world becomes permeable, where things can pass through from spirit to the material, from the material to spirit. And we know Samhain, or the modern Halloween, it was seen as the ultimate threshold time to the Celts, and it was when boundaries between the living and the dead disappeared. I really like that. And it's funny because I think about Halloween and the story of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, and that being a threshold time, and how spooky that is, and how thresholds can be scary. And maybe that's why we tell scary stories at threshold times, particularly Halloween time. I don't know. What do you think? Greek mythology gives us Janus, the two-faced god of doorways, transitions, and passages. He simultaneously looks forward and backward, representing the powerful moment between the past and the future. And we obviously have Hecate, the goddess of crosswords. Crosswords. Well, I don't think she's the goddess of crosswords, but she is the goddess of crossroads, was believed to appear at literal and metaphoric crossroads to guide travelers through transformative moments. So there's a crossroads, right? Feeling at a crossroads, threshold moment. Now, this other example that I think is pretty cool is in Norse mythology. They talk about the Bifrost, or the rainbow bridge between realms, and this is the cosmic threshold that allows the gods to travel between Asgard and Midgard, highlighting how threshold spaces connect different states of being. That is so cool. Threshold states connect different states of being and different states of awareness, and just different things. Many coming of age stories and folklore feature threshold moments. So think about Persephone eating the pomegranate seeds, making her transition between maiden and queen of the underworld. When fairy tale heroes cross into a dark forest, that marks their journey from innocence to experience. So there's a threshold. They start on their path. I think about, let's say, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. And it's like they're dancing down the path, her and her little dog. And then when they get to the forest, right, that's when things really start to change. And when her and her friends begin to gain experience. And how about this? When the Silkies cross between seal and human form at the shoreline, that's another threshold space, our shorelines, right? Where water meets land. So there's all kinds of thresholds in nature and in life. And the power of thresholds extends to literary traditions as well. Think of the wardrobe in Narnia, or platform 9 3/4 in Harry Potter. These magical transitions speak to our deep understanding that threshold spaces hold transformative power. So here are some examples of threshold moments that people commonly experience, but they don't always recognize. Career thresholds, the moment between being a student and entering into your profession, stepping into your first leadership role, starting your own business, choosing to leave a secure job for an uncertain but meaningful path. Here are some personal growth thresholds. The first time you set a boundary with family, moving out of your hometown, consciously breaking a generational pattern, the moment you choose to seek therapy or healing. How about relationship thresholds? We've all had these: choosing to be single after a long-term relationship pattern, the pause between dating and commitment, becoming a parent, the space between deciding to end a relationship and then actually leaving. Big threshold moment, right? There are identity thresholds. So coming out to yourself before you come out to others, the moment you claim an artist, writer, creator identity, recognizing yourself as someone who needs to make a major life change. That's a threshold. If you just are in the awareness of, I need to make a major life change, you're at a crossroads, you're at a threshold. Choosing to live sober. Some physical thresholds. The time between diagnosis and treatment. Those are big ones. A lot of people I know are dealing with health issues, and they had a diagnosis and their treatment hasn't started yet. I'm like, wait a second, Emily, you're at that point. I'm actually waiting for some treatment right now after getting a diagnosis finally. I'll probably share more with you about that later. Deciding to change your relationship with your body. That's a big one for a lot of us, where we just, I don't know, lately, as I've gotten towards middle age, I really want to be nicer to myself and to my body, and I'm not nitpicking it as much. And I want to nourish it with good food. Committing to any significant lifestyle change is a physical threshold. Anything you're going to do that's going to help your physical surroundings, home, health, hearth, and otherwise. Threshold moments could be recovery from illness or injury. And so you can see that threshold moments aren't short. There's kind of a process there, and it does involve time, which is why I really wanted to note at the beginning, at the top of the podcast, at the top of this episode, that looking to nature and the turn of the seasons, that doesn't happen instantaneously. And marking that solstice, winter solstice time, and then just noticing that gradually every day it gets lighter. It's like, okay, that threshold between winter and spring takes several weeks, because it does. So here are meaningful ways to honor threshold moments. So like I said, one of the ways that we can walk into this with intention is by taking some time to honor the moment that we're in. Some solitary rituals that you might find interesting would be writing letters to your past or future self. That's a big one. I enjoy that. This is one that I really like to do. Taking a symbolic journey or pilgrimage, even if it's just a mindful walk in nature. Creating an altar with objects that represent what you're releasing and welcoming. Performing a personal fire ceremony. I love to work with fire. I know it probably makes me sound kind of scary, but I do like to set things on fire, but I do it safely. But it sort of represents what we're letting go of, so you can write things down and put it in the fire. Taking self-portraits to document your transition. So take a picture of yourself right now in this moment and see what it conjures in you, because 6 months from now, you're going to look at that picture and feel something. I guarantee it. Going on a solo retreat, even if it's just for a day, can be really helpful. Here's some physical actions, and this is something I've seen people do or I've done. Some people like to get a meaningful tattoo. I personally don't have any tattoos, but I know so many people that's a big part of how they honor certain things in their life. They get a meaningful tattoo. You can change your appearance in some way. Who's heard about how you go through a breakup, you change your hair, right? Or creating or commissioning an art that represents the transition, planting a tree or a garden to mark the moment. I know that I tend to plant new things or change up my garden when I'm changing. And someone once told me, if you make a change in your garden, you make a change in your life, and vice versa. So I've found that to be true. Making a piece of jewelry that symbolizes the change. I have a charm bracelet, and I like to get a charm to represent certain things in my life. And then I look at my bracelet and it reminds me of how much I've been through. Community-based recognition, hosting a modern rite of passage ceremony with close friends. I just have someone that's very dear to me who gained citizenship in another country. That was a big deal, and she had a celebration, and I thought that was really awesome that she took the time to honor this big shift in her life by celebrating it with people who helped her along the way. So sharing your story in a supportive group, that is so awesome, because other people want to cheer you on, and you probably inspire them. You can plan a gathering where friends contribute a blessing or some wisdom. So this often happens at baby showers, wedding ceremonies, and things like that, but it can also just happen for big life changes. And that feels really special to have the gift of other people's support and wisdom. Maybe they can write it down in a card or something. So we can document it, right? Starting a dedicated journal for this transition period. I've offered this to many, many clients, and they've told me that it really works, is recording voice memos to capture your thoughts and feelings. So when you have them, just get your phone out and record it, and then they'll listen to it, and it's hearing from you, your own voice, how you're feeling, and then you're listening to your own voice. It's so powerful. Here's another one, creating a playlist that embodies the energy of your transformation. I, it's like when you go on a road trip, those are kind of transitions, right? You create a playlist. I mean, you're probably already doing it, listening to certain kinds of music. So kind of notice, what am I listening to? What am I reading? And how does it connect with this transition? And make a playlist out of it. Daily photo taking. I've been doing this. Taking different photographs every day to kind of mark this transitional period right now that I'm in, and I've been really enjoying that, and I'm making like a special album on my phone for that. Make a time capsule. Those are always cool. Now, this is, you can also change your environment, and this makes me laugh because I kind of just naturally do this with the seasons, is rearrange my living space, so you can do that. Create a new morning routine, or create a space that's designated for this transition time and daily reflection. Or you could build an outdoor altar space, or just any kind of outdoor space to honor this time. So it's like some place you can go to that's close by that you can sort of meditate on this transition. So it's really important this moon cycle to take some time to reflect. I know life is hard and I know things are busy, but ask yourself, am I in a threshold moment? And have I taken the time to consider how much magic can happen when I honor threshold moments? And so I wanted to walk through some journal prompts. Don't use the ones that don't resonate with you, use the ones that do. It depends on where you're at in this journey. So I have some prompts for recognizing the threshold, processing the journey, looking forward, and then deeper reflection and integration, which I think is so important. So recognizing the threshold, ask yourself, what feels different in my body when I stand in this moment of change? If this threshold were a doorway, what would I see on the other side? What signs and synchronicities led me to recognize this as a time of transformation? Which parts of me feel ready to emerge, and which parts feel ready to be released? And I would also say which parts feel scared, which parts feel worried. Now, for processing the journey, ask yourself, who was I before this moment, and who am I becoming? What am I most afraid to leave behind, and what am I most excited to welcome? Where do I feel resistance in this transition, and where do I feel flow? Because you're going to feel both. I know that's what happens to me. Even if it's something I really want and it's coming easy, I can still feel resistance and a little bit of fear. What wisdom have I gained that I wish I could share with my past self? And when you're looking forward, think this: what new possibilities open up on the other side of this threshold? Because there will be new possibilities. That's just the way it works. How will I honor my growth while staying grounded in my core values? What support systems do I need to build for this next chapter? What rituals or practices might help me mark this transition? And here's some deeper reflection journal prompts. If this threshold moment had a color, texture, or sound, what would it be? What ancestors or guides might have wisdom for me about this transition? And I was working with a client who's going through a big transition moment. It was so funny. I wasn't expecting to do any mediumship with them, and all of a sudden I felt one of her loved ones on the other side come forward and with advice about this threshold moment and a way to honor it. And it was really cool. What does my intuition whisper about this change when I get very quiet? How might this personal transformation ripple out to affect others? Because it will. We don't operate in a silo. How about some integration prompts? What tools and strengths have I discovered through this transition? How will I remind my future self of the significance of this time? What boundaries need to be set or adjusted as I step into this new phase? Because boundaries often change when we change, and that's okay. So do think about what are your needs, have your boundaries shifted, and how are you going to honor those new boundaries? What are you going to say when things come up and you need to honor your boundary? How are you going to say no? How are you going to say yes? How are you going to say, I don't do that anymore? So think about that. What am I ready to declare or claim about who I'm becoming? So there's a lot of prompts there. So re-listen to this if you need to, or rewatch this if you need to. I'm sure it will appear in the transcript on all of the podcast platforms. I've set it up so that it'll do that so you can quickly read and look at these things and refer to them later. And it's just a really magical time right now. And I know that that doesn't mean everybody's having a good time, right? Some people are, and some people aren't. And some of us are kind of in this weird threshold time, right? And I think that that's okay. But the intention of these tarot curated insights is to help us stop and use these archetypes as a form of honoring a spiritual practice. And I do think that tarot is a spiritual practice, and that's how I'm using it here, is as a spiritual practice and offering ways for myself and you to take a step back, to take a deep breath, to become reflective, to really consider what our experiences have been in this moment right now, from moon cycle to moon cycle to moon cycle to moon cycle, right? Because every 2 weeks we've got a new tarot curated insight, and a lot happens in 2 weeks. And so working with these themes can help us just be more in rhythm with ourselves. So let's go back and just hear our intention and affirmation one more time. Our intention is to explore threshold moments with gentle strength. And our affirmation is that, like the lion with the rose, I am both fierce and gentle, and I trust my wisdom. So get those journals out. Take good care of yourselves. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast on whatever service you're choosing to watch or listen. Leave a review, drop a comment. You know that I love to hear from you. Take good care of yourselves, and I will see you on the full moon.